architectural standards. So room sizes, room layouts, etc., can be discussed by the board and the Planning Commission during the actual special exception process. If there is a desire to look at the room size issue, we can certainly do that and bring it back for discussion.
I guess my concern is somebody goes off and designs 1,500 square foot rooms and it looks more like an apartment than a room. I mean, is that what we're looking to do? Are we looking to make these apartments? Rural Resort doesn't make it. They get rented out as someplace else to live. Now you've got a different use, and it won't be a rural resort. That would go away, but the rooms would still be there. Why couldn't they be apartments? They still own them. I don't know that you could stop them from using them. We went through this with a house on a piece of property for people that wanted to use it for something other than just a house. It was they were going to have people come stay to look, that were looking at lumber, that kind of stuff. There was a lot of discussion about what would that become if that stopped. Could these become then apartments? They wouldn't be a rural resort. They'd resort to rural preservation zoning. They'd have 15, 18, 20 apartments, and there wouldn't be a whole lot we could do about that. Is there?
I think zoning-wise, yes, there is. There would be a process that you would have to go through similar to any other type of change in use. Converting to a conversion to an apartment under this zoning is not a permitted use. And I understand your thought process.
Well, but that means we have to go inspect, and we've got plenty of places that started out as one thing that are today something else that we're now in the battle of trying to rectify. And what you don't want to do is start spending a lot of staff time trying to rectify a situation that didn't need to get to that point. I guess my other question was, in that same line, if this becomes something else, are there any road standards that are going to be imposed on this in terms of it's going to be a rural resort? They could potentially have 200 or 300 people there. We could have fire and rescue requirements. Are there any road requirements for this facility?
Mr. Seeley, I think that's something that you can specify during the SE process. I think there need to be some general parameters. Right. I don't think we can be so specific that we have 500 conditions related to...
Well, I'm not even looking for 500, but, you know, I know of 2 facilities that are being looked, if this goes through, that could potentially go, in spite of what we're trying to do, into my district.
But Mr. Seeley, each one would be a special exception.
I completely agree. They'd be a special exception. But we have other property in the county that was a special exception that is not conforming today, that is going to cost us a tremendous amount of energy and money to rectify. Once it's built, if somebody says it's no longer a rural resort, it's still there.
Right.
How do you stop somebody from using something that's already there that you can't even see? You don't know what it's become. It eventually becomes a problem when somebody complains.
And I think that's part of what we're going to get into, because if you have a rural resort on Main Street in Bowling Green, it's obviously going to have different requirements than if I have a rural resort on Balti Road, which is kind of one of the more rural parts. So each one of these we're going to handle in special exceptions. I think what Mr. Fincham and the Planning Department are trying to do is give us general parameters. I mean, you make great points, which for each special exception are going to be great points. But here we're just looking at the general parameters.
What I'm saying is I think we're spreading, I mean, I think rural resorts, as you always say, great idea, wrong location. I think we should look at where we really want these. There are some places that make sense. They're closer to fire and rescue. They're closer to a main road. I mean, those are the kinds of things I think we have to think about. I mean, we all had concerns about the last one of these big facilities and what was going to go in it and what it was going to take to use it.
You know,
we are now in that
same... We made a mistake on that one.
We are now in the same... But we're getting ready to create the same kind of thing in wrong locations for reuse. And I think we have to be, we've got an example now of one that everybody said, you know, it's a great idea, wrong location. So should we be mindful of necking these down into places that make sense?
And it is only RP is what we're looking at, but it could be a special exception anywhere, right?
Subject to these standards,
Subject
if
to
these are the standards the board
Which
has
says it's RP. Okay. Mr. Taylor?
I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is a text amendment. This allows the board to give consideration to a rural resort anywhere in Caroline County under this zoning. So I guess the concern that I have is I don't want to see us put a lot of stipulations on the text amendment, gearing it to the Port Royal area, since this is the one that we think is going to be making application. You know, I don't want to see us do that. To me, we have the authority by placing conditions. When we do the SE, we can place conditions. This 1,200 acres of land, it could put 50 houses on it. You could have traffic.
They'd have to build state standard roads to do that.
Again, but I mean, he could build houses. He could build houses on that property, and there would be nothing we could do about it. He has the right to do that, and we can tell him how many people are going to come there, and how many people are going to visit him. But all I'm saying is the text amendment is for the entire county. It's not for just this area, and I don't think the text amendment ought to be geared for that. I think we ought to do the text amendment and look at each SE individually. And when one comes to us, we look at it, we place the conditions on it that we feel are necessary to keep us from having to deal with unwanted situations. But I don't think we can do a blanket thing that restricts the entire county, or we can't fix it for one particular area, because I think you put yourself in a box when you do that.
But we limit where we have growth areas in the county to places that have utilities. And I think we should limit some of this rural resort to some place that it's actually accessible. And I'm not saying put it in downtown Bowling Green or downtown Milford, but I'm saying putting it 2 miles off the road at the edge of the county that we have to provide services for isn't a good thing for anybody. And I think we should neck down, if we're going to do these, we should set up areas where they make sense. Because this is only the first one. This isn't going to be the only one. And putting these in the outskirts and in obscure places that fire and rescue has to go there, the sheriff's office is going to have to go there. You're spreading these things out way in areas that aren't set up for this.
You again make a good point. I would, if I were on the other side of that argument, I would present to you that ALA is the most rural part of the county.
I agree with you.
And nobody could get to there.
And Mr. Chairman, that was
a
long discussion.
Right.
And again, that situation was presented to us from years ago. And we now have hindsight of what happens when that kind of facility is allowed to be built in a very rural, very difficult place to transport or get to. And I think we should use that as the example of and neck down some places. If the text amendment, if we want to do these some places, but they need to make sense and not be in the most remotest part of the counties where we still have to provide services.
But you're right, but part of
just the opposite.
Part of a rural resort would be
in a rural preservation district. You want it in where you want to put it downtown Bowling Green?
What are you going to do with the next use?
Well, what you're going to do is,
Mr. Fincham,
you're going to limit this.
1 second before we get too long. Mr. Fincham, under normal circumstances, when we grant a special exception, like we just did last meeting or whenever, when that use is finished or abandoned or whatever, that special exception by definition goes away, right?
Yes, sir. If it's discontinued for more than, I think under our SE standards, it's 1 year.
Right.
It's more restrictive than your non-conforming use provision.
So I build a rural resort in my backyard. Nobody knows about it but me and the people I plan to have come. All of a sudden, I can't do it anymore. My special exception is voided. The building theoretically is going to be unoccupied until I get another special exception or another one. I see your point, but I know that. That's not like a house that I got 42 people living in. I know it's a special exception. I know it exists on Milford Street somewhere. I can go by and check it on a regular basis. Just like if this one or one in your district or whoever's district goes under, fails, whatever, we know it's there. We can come back and follow up on it to make sure it's not something it wasn't supposed to be. It's not like I have to check the whole county. But
That's why you place conditions. If they don't meet the conditions, then you pull that special exception. I mean, it's
well,
just like
the
we
thing
do
is
with
if,
all
if
of
they
them.
go bankrupt, or if they go bankrupt, what happens? And that's Mr. Seeley's point. I understand that, but if they do, I know where you are. So it's not like I'm searching around looking for property maintenance issues.
Yeah, but we're still back to, we've got to enforce it, we've got to spend the manpower and the resources, and property maintenance is something that's really tough to do. We're struggling with it 2 agenda items ago.
But
And
that-
what do you
is that
do when
not the
people
case?
move in?
Is that not the
Well, let
case
him
with
finish.
anything that we do?
Let him finish. You
I
finish.
mean, I don't see what it says. Then we'll never do a special exception. We'll never do.
No, that-
I mean, you
that's
got
not
to
the case at
enforce.
all.
There are always those situations where people may not do what they're supposed to do. You can't deny a person. We talk about property rights, and we talk about allowing people to do what they want to do on their property, given certain conditions. I mean, if we
property
want to
rights, Mr. Taylor, let me
Okay.
say something
Gentlemen,
about property
gentlemen,
rights.
gentlemen,
Property
we are-
rights
wait,
are
wait,
those
wait.
things that you are
Wait.
granted when you buy the
We're
property.
getting a little away from the topic at hand.
Well, I understand, but property rights is
Okay,
something
but
you're
that's-
granted when you
that's
buy
another
it. This is
discussion.
a special
We're
exception.
going to have another discussion about property rights and other things. Let's just focus on the 3 text amendments. Do we want to move those to public hearing? Do we want to discuss specifics in the text amendments? There's nothing in the text amendments about property rights. Specifics about the text amendments, or what? So, specifically about the 3 text amendments. Mr. Black.
Mr. Thomas, I just came from Alaska, and the idea of it, we saw plenty of rural resorts up in Alaska, and I think the concept of a rural resort is a great concept. My concern here is it has to be done the right way. We have to figure out a way to do it the right way. And if you think of if I think of a rural resort, I think of a place where there's limited things that you can do on that rural resort that are allowed. I guess my only thing in the rural resort text amendment where we say including but not limited to, take the but not limited to out and say here's what you can do at a rural resort. Here's a list of things that the county will accept at a rural resort, rather than say but not limited to. So you make the list of here is A, B, C, D that would be in compliance with what we would consider a rural resort to be.
You think all the things in here should be included? It says swimming pools, golf course, equestrian facilities, recreation.
I mean, that would be up for a future, yes. And I don't have I don't really have a huge problem with anything that's on there right now. But there are possibilities of getting away from getting into activities that I think are not in compliance with what a rural resort would be. Not on here.
Why was that put in there? But not limited to.
There might,
Yeah, but I'm just,
slightly different approach, that there might be other recreational types of, a racquetball court, okay, is something that's part of a conference center complex or something like that. Slightly different, I I hear
now.
Mr. Black's concerns, and I think those may be valid issues. Kind of looking at it from the other perspective, tennis courts, ball courts, cricket, whatever, do we want to name all of the specific active recreational uses that are allowed, and do we run afoul? Having said that, I understand Mr. Black's concerns that maybe that language is a little bit too general and could open it up too much. Maybe that's something that we take a look at. Because once you go to public hearing, again, depending on how many changes you make after that public hearing, we may end up having to go back to public hearing again. So,
And that's what we're trying to avoid, because you don't mention baseball fields, softball fields. So that was one thing, just sitting there for 2 minutes trying to think of what's not here, and that's the first thing that popped up. So we can define, just like we do in any rezoning, we can define what activities could be available.
But wouldn't we do that in the special exception?
That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
we can take care of that in the special
Yeah,
exception.
in the text
that
amendment.
should not be in
Right.
the text amendment.
We're just talking about the text amendment. So when it comes down to, Floyd's Rural Resort on Milford Street, when I come for my special exception, you're going to say, well, one of the board members will say, what activities are you going to have there? And I'm going to say, just baseball and football, nothing else. So then we would make, as a condition of that special exception, these are the things you said you're going to do. And if you want to do something else, you have to come back and ask again, which is what we normally do. I see everybody's point. And Jeff, for the text amendment, it should be a little more open, but then we restrict it as we get to each individual special exception. Because when Reggie does his rural resort, it may be on a river, and all he wants to do is fishing and nothing else.
And I might be wrong on this. If you don't make the text amendment a little bit more stringent, my concern is when we do a special exception, what you do for one person, it's very difficult. Then someone else wants to do something, and my fear is you get the whole favoritism with rural resort involved. Well, that you allow it for this person but not this person, and so if you're more stringent early on, it's really hard to grant the special exception down the road.
Well, I see what you're saying, but that's,
You
wait.
box yourself in.
I mean, so the rural resort would have to come in. The rural resort would have to come in knowing that the text amendment. You see what I'm saying?
I think I do.
Okay.
What I personally believe is we should be consistent. Consistency is true with rezoning. If you want to rezone and you've got the same conditions as Mr. Taylor, it should be consistent. By definition, special exceptions are each individual unique thing. So if yours is exactly like somebody else's, I would be consistent and say if I voted for that or didn't vote for that, I'd do the same. If yours is different, then there are different things. Because by definition, each special exception is different. So each one would have different parameters. They're going to be locations. It's not rezoning. Special exceptions are unique, one-of-a-kind, theoretically, things that come in. We may get another special exception academy. Are we going to look at that one? And especially if it has some religious connotations with it, or if it comes with something you don't necessarily like, We still are supposed to look at it consistently, but it has its own individual unique factors. So that's kind of what I was thinking. But that's another story. All right. Again, good point, devil's advocate. I think the difference is rezoning, consistency, special exceptions are all unique. So boxing you in to some degree is what the text amendment does. We're going to box you in with the text amendment to say this is what you do. And again, during the special exception process, we can box, restrict, whatever verb you want to use to, or I guess that's an adjective, to make it tighter. So we're really just saying this is the whole county, this is what you can do special exception for rural resort. And it's RP. So you're not going to do one on Main Street in Bowling Green because that's R1 probably. You know, and it's a town anyhow, which is in the story. So question specifically to Mr. Fincham to change, look at anything in the text amendment.
The encumbrance of land with a store. Because currently that isn't, each room encumbers,
Where do you see that?
it's not in there now. But there is encumbrance for each room of land, but there's no encumbrance for a store.
Minimum parcel size? Is that?
Right. I mean, no, not just minimum for it, but how much it encumbers of the total piece. Each room encumbers 25 acres. How much would the store encumber?
Okay. I will give to you the example of the store at Rappahannock Academy. It's on a very small parcel of land. Do you want to?
That's not a rural resort special exception.
No, but the general store is a separate standalone special exception. It's not part of the rural resort in and of itself. It would require its own special exception.
Well, let me ask you this then: could the store then be put on 17 and the rural resort be a mile behind it?
In theory, yes, sir.
So we're actually going to grant two separate things with. So there's no requirement for the store to be near the rural resort.
No, sir, that was specifically taken out as a part of the rural resort.
But it's allowed.
And made a standalone special exception use.
Okay. What store were you talking about at Rappahannock Academy?
The little store,
Post office.
little station up there
One
where the
near
post
Brick
office.
Road and- That little tiny one that sells oysters and whatnot? Okay.
And my only question is, do you want a minimum or a maximum parcel
So,
size?
I guess my confusion was I thought the store was tied to the rural resort.
Again, that's where we have separated what was initially proposed and tried not to tie it to the specific proposal, looking at it from the county's
Countywide.
perspective.
Right.
Okay.
Separate use or separate special exception use.
Mr. Taylor?
I would like to make a motion that we go to public hearing with these three text amendments, if I can get a second.
Motion made by Mr. Taylor. Is there a second?
Second. Do we need to do them separately?
I figured you would say that. But I'm moving text amendments. I'm not doing zoning. All right. I don't think that's going to happen, but I understand what you're saying. Okay. You want to do text 10, 2013, which is the first
That
one?
is my motion.
That's my second.
10. We do 10, 11, 12. We do each one.
Right.
All right. Motion for 10. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Is there another motion?
I move for adoption of, public hearing, go to public hearing of text amendment 11, 2013.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Division of the House, Mr. Black, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion carries 5-1.
And move for text amendment 12, 2013 to go to public hearing.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Mr. Black, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-1. All right. When is the public hearing, Mr. Fincham?
September.
This is July. We only have one meeting in August. We We obviously don't have enough time to advertise, so it'll be the first meeting in September?
First or second, depending on board's preference.
First meeting in September?
Okay.
All righty. That takes care of the text amendments. That was fun. Informational calendar items, Mr. Cully.
We have, as stated earlier, Mr. Underwood's community meetings on there for the first full week of August. We have Tuesday night's National Night Out at all the same locations it's been in the last couple of years. No, the 6th.
Oh,
The
okay.
6th of August. I'm all the way into August. Don't really have anything for next week. Board meetings on the 13th, and then a reminder again for the 38th groundbreaking, 38th parallel groundbreaking Saturday.
At the high school, 9 o'clock. Nobody on vacation? I'm going to have to ask that all the time.
9 o'clock Saturday morning?
Saturday morning at the high school.
Okay.
This coming Saturday. Do we have, what is it? I'm going to be there.
It's 38th
The
parallel
middle
grant.
school kids are having, they created the 38th
Oh,
parallel project
okay,
for Korea.
okay. No, I got something Saturday morning.
There are some Korean, I guess, descendants or people from Korea originally in the county. I'm going to try to invite a couple of those. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but, well, they're all from South Korea. I don't know anybody from North Korea, so. I think it'd be good to have them there. Okay. That was it? Nobody on vacation? Except Pam, who's coming back.
Well, there'll be some senior staff on vacation. Chief will be on, and Mr. Sheeble at different times in the coming month. I think Chief's next week.
In August? You're out next week, Chief? Mr. Shibu, you're out when? Second week in August? Can you, well, okay, I guess you can go. You can send an email that says Joey's on vacation. We have a closed session. And I need a motion for the board to move into, legal counsel briefings by staff, exemption 2.23711A7, Code of Virginia regarding specific legal matters requiring legal advice regarding the joint petition before the State Corporation Commission of Aqua, Virginia and Ladysmith Water Company to transfer assets from Ladysmith Water to Aqua, Virginia. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries 5-0. Mr. Taylor, understandably, is not here at this incident. So we'll take 5 to allow everybody a chance to leave. No.
Patch it. You ain't going
Okay.
anywhere.
Microphone's back on. The board will reconvene. We need a motion to come out of closed meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Taylor, that the board come out of closed meeting. Mr. Black, do you certify that only those things we went into closed meeting were the things we discussed?
I so certify.
Mr. Seeley,
I so certify.
Mr. Underwood,
I so certify.
Mr. Akers,
so certify.
Mr. Taylor,
I so certify.
and I so certify. There is no action that comes out of the closed meeting. Board's business for the evening would be complete. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
Second.
We'll take them both. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're adjourned.